And I'm
JuJutsu Kaisen. Wow, I can't
part
even speak today.
48, the Shibuya incident, right? Yep, the Shibuya
Is it
incident.
really 48? Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
I
literally,
think
like a year's worth of publications on just this event. That's obscene.
another good note. Jujutsu Kaisen was also on the cover of Shonen like Weekly this week again. So I know it
That's
was
crazy. It's because it was only what 3 or 4 weeks ago that it was the cover as well.
because of how.
This series has gained
Yeah.
a lot of traction with the release of the
Oh,
anime. It's been
I
crazy.
I agree. Well, and it's kind of crazy. Just a quick we always go back to the anime real fast, but and I know it's not purposely aligned. It just seems that way because like this week we just met Mahito, and I'm like, all right, now this week in the manga itself we meet his
Oh, it's the
form.
transformation and stuff. Yeah, that's interesting.
Like
Yeah, okay.
and I said that before. We're like, okay, when we met with the girl, we're like, okay, this week in the anime we met the girl, and then the week of the manga came out. This is we met her end.
She
So
got
it's
she
like,
got destroyed.
and again, like I know it's not intentional, right? It's just the way things align. It's just kind of like,
No, it's funny, right?
yeah,
Timing is everything, as the cliche goes. So
for sure. But talking, just the cover, the spread color, it's awesome. Like I didn't expect all that purple, if I'm being honest.
no, I
So
didn't either, but it works. Do you think he's actually supposed to be purple, or do you think that's
that's just
just
like a color
the?
motif.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say cursed energy to me mentally has always been purple in my mind, kind of thing. Because again, anime tropes, manga tropes, evil's always purple, but I
Yep.
don't think
Hmm.
evil is purple in this case. It's more just cursed energy isn't a positive energy, right? It's just genuinely negative. So I think that's why I've always imagined it's purple. Which again, I guess, kind of jumping back to the anime to make a comparison, it's kind of funny because I haven't seen really anybody have a purple aura yet. It's actually been, at least with Megumi and Fusakage, it's been
They're kind of like black,
greenish almost, right?
blue.
It's like a
Yeah.
greenish, bluish, black thing going on. So I was surprised to see the purple as well. I would totally agree, but it looks freaking great, man. You
Ah,
know,
yeah. Very.
honestly, maybe this is why there was that filler chapter a week ago, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, because they wanted this and he didn't have enough time to do 2 full chapters plus additional cover work. Like that's a lot to add to an artist's plate, right? So I'm wondering if that's maybe why we actually saw that.
Especially to do a color like every. I mean, for all we know, 6 days, right? God knows how
Oh
long.
yeah, exactly. Or we don't really know how far they are ahead of time and stuff like that. So yeah, it was crazy. It was really good, and yeah. Well, honestly, let's just kind of jump right in with
Yep.
this crazy transformation of Mahito's, and
Transfiguration. Yeah.
yeah, of what did he
I don't.
call it again?
It's something
Disfigured.
about killing and stuff like that. I'm really just overall like the beginning, because the rest of the chapter is just like a whole bunch of fights. I This exchange is pretty enjoyable before
The
before
actual fight. Oh, where
yeah.
he's saying you should wish him a happy birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. So that he's very like he plays with Yuji a lot when it comes to stuff like that. So
Yeah, again, he's a manipulator. It's kind of been his main thing throughout this
yeah,
entire series, where he just messes with people. He gets enjoyment out of it, and that's very clear right from the beginning, right? Where we see Yuji, he's questioning what's going on. He's like, "Oh, he's never used this form before. What's kind of going on there?" The thing that actually I think surprised me the most was he he almost calls Mahito out, because Mahito is actually kind of very childish in his character portrayal,
oh, for
where,
sure.
he's manipulative, he plays games, he's just always looking for the next thing he can kind of just screw with, right? He doesn't care about anything. And Itadori's call out of, I didn't expect you to be the type of person to go on a journey of
Yeah,
self-discovery was, I kind of loved it. It was very,
it was a great comeback. It was a great comeback on the same level. Yeah, just like with like previous chapters ago when they first started fighting, where it's like when he yelled like Mahito, and was like, "Why are you yelling?" It's a good comeback.
oh yeah, why are you? Yeah, very true, very true. With the so here's a question then, because I found this very surprising. On page 5, we've got, "Once I kill you, then I will truly be born." So do you think this is almost like a halfway state? Okay, well, I
I
guess
mean,
first of all,
I mean,
Yuji's obviously not going to die right now. He's the main character, but do you think there's the possibility of like an extra transformation should that be happening? Because that's interesting to me, where he says, "Oh, this is my true unbridled soul," but then he says, "But once I kill you, I'll truly be born." So that's a little conflicting to me, and I'm wondering what's kind of the nature of the point of that. Or are we maybe overthinking it? Do you think there's something there?
I think it's just like Yuji's is an obstacle. I that's
Mm.
that's the most I could think right now. Because I read the chapters and I kind of, you let it marinate for like a day or so, a day, and like I can't think of nothing more. Honestly, I think it's just Yuji's just an obstacle because they fought so many times and he's been in.
I would kind of agree. I'd actually maybe raise that to the next level because Mahito's been sitting there and comparing their ideological states to one another, right? Where Mahito's like, "Oh, I've killed a bunch of humans and I never even think about it. You've killed a bunch of curses and you've never even thought about it. I'm searching for my existence. Well, you're trying to define your existence." So they've got that natural antithesis kind of relationship going on where each is the opposite of one another.
Well,
Um,
the funny thing is, they are the opposite. Where like, Yuji eventually has to die, right? We know that's from like chapter one, or like
yeah.
even his goal, like he wants to find a meaningful death, and and so on. Where like Mahito is like, I'm trying to get born. I'm trying to, you know what I mean? So I mean, just he uses it like he knows he's the
Mm-hmm.
real human. He's trying to look for his inner soul. Whatever. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, again, might be overthinking it. I mean, just because just the wording itself, like, I will truly be born. That's how I see it as. Just thinking about it.
That's
So,
fair. You know what? We're also kind of missing the fact that it could be lost in translation a little bit.
nah,
You know,
yeah.
maybe there's something there that we're just not fully aware of. Anyway, so I just guess going into it, one thing that I always just find impressive, again, as we've talked about, is the art is just crazy good in this series. Akutami
No,
like
it's the
absolutely
animation.
kills these panels, man. When you go to 6 and 7, even just to start it out, right? You know,
Like, he uses his
bottom.
yeah, oh my god, it's so good. I mean, he uses his like what do you call them? Elbow sabers.
Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, yeah, his elbow blades. Yeah.
It's pretty good, man.
Well,
Um,
it's just crazy though, because like even in the first panel, right? You see all that stuff going off. In the second one with Yuji on page 6, you see him spin into that kick, and then the
yep.
next thing is that kick like not connecting really, right?
Yeah,
I
and
love
then it gets tangled to his like hair knot, headband. I
that
don't think.
thing, yeah, whatever the hell is coming out of his head, yeah, which apparently I guess he can also control. So I guess similarly to how he could, manipulate his tongue into arms and hands, I guess he can continue to do that now, but with almost every extension of his body, which to be honest is kind of OP. Like, Yuji is basically an overactive human, and this guy's like, oh
I
yeah, any part of my body, I can just blade here, blade there. Yeah, I'm gonna do that, no question.
what I really liked in this chapter. I mean, aside from like all of it, right after on page, let me see, because basically right after that on page 8 on top where he hits him on the knee, that comes back later in the chapter if you notice.
Oh
Where,
yeah,
where
because he's got to hit his knee to get it going again, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
oh shit, it's not
because
working
that
properly.
was definitely a hard hit where like you see the not I don't want to say repercussions, but like you like,
No,
oh
absolutely.
yeah. But again, more hand to hand combat, like it's just so cool, man. And it and it makes you wonder, like, man, Yuji's like a tough kid, bro. Like
Oh, I know, it's insane, right? Because he's getting
I mean,
absolutely beat.
oh, for sure. And we already knew that from like chapter one. Like, oh man, he's like a really like athletic kid, like extremely athletic for no reason. And I think that's okay because we kind of just like go with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's probably more to it that we don't know, but it could just be as simple as like, oh, he's just really athletic and he just has a unique body in that sort of aspect.
Yeah, there's always the possibility of maybe there's something deeper there. We haven't still really run into his family, so there definitely could be something tied into why Yuji has this superhuman resilience almost. The thing that I also just want to bring attention back to is I like the, I guess, almost equal playing field of this fight because sometimes when one character evolves and goes to the next, power level, if you will, in a shonen, there's this tendency for them to just instantaneously blow the other person out of the water. And I like that Yuji is on, constantly like level ground throughout this fight, where it's counter hit to counter punch. The only time we really see a difference in that is just kind of midway through the chapter, or actually I guess just oh no, about midway, page 13 to 12, where Mahito just kind of picks him up and just absolutely shreds him into the floor.
Yeah,
That's
that's
kind
a
of
great.
doubling down on what you're saying, where it's just like, man, how does he get up from that, right? Like, look at
Yeah.
all of the rubble that's coming up from that hit. Even in the next panel, right, we can see he's still kind of recovering from it, and you're just like, wow, man, like, how are you still going through with everything you've dealt with tonight? How are you still finding that extra gear to keep going? It's crazy, man. There's got to be some sort of superhuman reason
Yeah,
for him.
I mean, like again, there might be. I mean, will they reveal it? I mean, I hope so, because like I always remember the first chapter and first episode of the anime. Like, oh, his grandfather's like, let me tell you about your parents. Like, then he's like, nah, I don't want to know. And it's like, all right, peace. I'm like, oh, okay, so there's something more to it. We, possibly. I now would hope so, but if not, I think that's okay too. I'm okay with just like the main character, just the way he is. If he does have like his parents were like, I don't know, or his family lineage is significant when it comes to like beating curses or something like that. But going forward, I'm going past where like he ground him to the ground pound him essentially, right? He said he needs to use the Black Flash and like he needs to use 100% of his maximum curse energy. And I'm curious that's how that's going to turn out.
Well, that was going to be my thing, right? Because when you go to after he kind of comes to that realization, it's very interesting to me that the very first text box that you see is there, or sorry, I guess the only text box really on that page there's not a single JuJutsu sorcerer who can use it at will, which,
but it's funny, who said that, right?
wasn't it Nanami?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's a bad over reliance, right? Which is kind of interesting, but I'm wondering if he's trying to use that to maybe push himself, because Yuji breaks the foundations of a lot of things in the cursed world, right? Nobody thought a vessel for Sukuna could ever exist. He does. He went from zero cursed energy to decent cursed energy usage within a few months. He's just always kind of breaking the foundations, right? The amount of times he's used Black Flash, like all these different types of things. So I'm not sure if that's intended to be maybe a warning in the form of a foreshadow, or if it's just once again Yuji's kind of going plus ultra, if you will, and doing something that other jujutsu sorcerers have been unable to accomplish, right? Because again, he's doing those things on a regular basis. So is this just another hurdle, or is this going to be, oh, this is the only thing I know how? It's make or break, and it's tough to say.
yeah. No, I agree. And continuing on with like, the chapter, like his leg shaking, and then you see Yuji's leg like kind of like, I don't want to say give out, but like, oh man, because he did get hit pretty hard a few pages ago. But then you also see Mahito like blood and like attack, like he just got damaged from from I guess a delayed. You know what I mean? And it's funny because he does bring it up because he did get hit when he cut off Toto's hand. When he did that.
Yeah.
So that was an extreme like delay. Black Flash when we really look at it.
Agreed. Yeah, the after effects of it were super, super delayed. And sorry, hold on. I apologize. There is some sort of nailing going on in the background right now. Sorry. Yeah, it was definitely a delayed Black Flash, and I found that kind of surprising. It was almost like an aftershock. What
Yeah.
also, I guess, kind of threw me for a loop for a second there was in the scene where he's like looking down at his leg, right? Because kind of guessing it's either numb and he can't feel it or something of that nature. It almost looks like his foot's missing in that panel, to be honest. And
Well,
I
it's
thought
like it's embedded like into the dirt, I think.
I guess, but that honestly, with the way in the first two pages, or sorry, page 4 and 5, or 7 and 6 and 7, geez Louise, when he gets his foot tangled, I thought maybe it had got taken off and I just hadn't realized. But then when you get to 15 and 14, you see it's still clearly there, so that just kind of threw me for a bit of a loop. The thing for me that I kind of loved about this chapter as a whole was I got super Hunter x Hunter vibes where
Oh,
he
for sure, with the sun
he
couldn't.
goes
Yeah.
for like the rock paper scissors punch. And I was like, oh shit, okay, that's pretty cool. I don't know if that was necessarily intentional, but I
Yeah.
friggin' loved it, man.
Oh, and just a quick thing when you said you thought his leg was gone, they're like since Mahito put him to the ground, like he crushed his like he ground pound him. There was like water. Remember, they're like on
I
the street.
see that now. Yeah. Okay. So those are pipes.
Like,
I'm. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, because Mahito's legs are also like looks like they're like
Cut off a little bit too. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So
That's a
they're
good
in like
catch.
pure water or whatever pipes and stuff like that. But yeah,
Cool, and I love it. Recent the art style. It hasn't like I'm not saying it's gotten worse. That's not the terminology. Far rougher almost in the last number of chapters because there's so much dynamicism trying to be portrayed in all of the paneling that rather than have these clean images by giving them that shakiness it gives it a more realistic pose. And then even on the next one where he dodges the initial punch for Mahito and then he starts and he blocks the other, there's a very exchange based nature to all of the fights in the series where there's, as you were mentioning, there's clearly a counter, there's clearly a block, there's all these different types of things, and it really just speaks to how well the storyboarding must be designed, how intent Akutami is on making every single fight have a very step by step order to it. It's not random. It's not 17 actions are going down in one panel. It's all very deliberate. It's all very choreographed. As you mentioned, there's that kung fu-esque moviness to it, and I think that's just so true, and it just helps to establish this series, and I think is also just a part of the reason why it's blowing up because the action is just on such a fantastic level on every single fight in every single chapter.
for sure. And the story is like simple to follow. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of characters to like. It's a massive. We could say it's a massive world, but it's very like condensed.
It is, right? Because you don't know really what forces are doing in other parts of the world. So it's nice and kind of contained to Japan, but we could still see this happening in other places. So I don't know. I've kind of covered, I think, most of the stuff that there is to talk about. The
Yeah.
only question that I want to ask, which is the final two panels, is Itadori? Does he seem shocked by Mahito meeting him with that punch?
No,
We've got
I don't think.
this. No, you think that's just it's a focus? It's just
Yeah.
okay, this is it kind of moment.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. We're like, I'm gonna get him, and then obviously Mahito's like smiling because he's the big bad,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, I really the last two the last page, right, or last two panels, I love that, man, because I love the scar that he got, Yuji, because he got that scar when well, it happened in this chapter where like Mahito's like barraging him with multiple punches, and it reminded me of when Yuji was like blocking that energy thing, but the first time he faced against the spirit, not the spirit, the special grade curse, where like he lost his arm and everything.
Oh yeah, and like his face was like peeling and stuff like that from the
Yeah,
energy burst.
and his fingers were peeling. It very much reminded me of that, you know. So I don't know how the next chapter is gonna go. I honestly,
Well,
well, here's my theory. If the next chapter is obviously gonna, it's gonna be like the finishing blow. We would assume, right? Maybe, who knows? But my theory is, I think we'll see your theory come fruition, where like he's gonna use Sukuna's curse technique out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like it'll come out
not
because
intentionally, like just a defense mechanism or based
yeah.
off his cursed energy or something like that. Yeah.
I could see them both hitting each other. Yuji go down, and then Mahito's still standing there, like, haha, I did it because like I'm the boss or whatever. Whatever. He walks away, does his own thing. Maybe he tries to go for the killing blow, but then of course delay attack, and then he gets like sliced up.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Or
That
yeah, or
that
yeah,
was
or
great.
maybe Sukuna finally comes in because I'm surprised he hasn't shown his face again. To be honest, they had that little quick conversation last chapter, but then he's been on the sidelines this entire time, and I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I am. Same here. Also, another thing. Going back, just a quick like before we move on to the next manga. Suguna was a human, right? Then he became a cursed spirit.
That's the only way I can process it. So
Do you think
They
like lineage is connected to Yuji's?
very possible because, and that's kind of something I've always wondered, right? Is, as I was mentioning earlier in this review, we don't know enough about his heritage, and I've got to feel that there has to be an intentional design there has to be intent behind the design of Sukuna and Itadori. I don't think Sukuna just looks like Itadori because Sukuna's now in his body, so he's like, oh, this is my vessel, I'm going to take on the form. I don't really think that's the case. I think the them having, the same character model is intentional, and I think it definitely could maybe be related to some sort of heritage thing. Maybe that's why he could be a vessel, because he is like, Sukuna's descendant 1,000 years later, right? That
Yeah.
would make sense from a plot perspective. So I think it's very possible, to be honest. We won't
Yeah.
know for some time still, but I think that's definitely very possible.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Definitely a good. I could definitely see that, and it'll make sense, like you said. It'll like what that's why he could do all those things. That's why he could take those fingers, and like be
Well,
okay.
yeah, because I mean, in this arc alone, he had what, like an extra 15, like shoved into him, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So for him to be able to withstand that, I think, I like that idea for the descendant idea. I think that could definitely be something we see coming out later down the line. So
for sure. Do you have any other final thoughts?
no, I think we're good to end it there. I don't even sorry, I guess foreshadowing or predictions for next week, because I got no clue, man. I'm gonna stand by he's gonna use the Sukuna technique, but other than that, I don't got a freaking clue, man. I don't know if you know Gojo's randomly gonna escape. Is one of the upperclassmen that we haven't seen randomly gonna show up? I got no freaking clue, man. There's so many ways for this to randomly twist, and with how this particular arc has been kind of just turning on itself every chance it gets, I think just waiting to see is just gonna totally be worth it. So.
For sure. And that'll be it. And then we're gonna move on to